3 contracts for drivers for the Medical Assistance Transportation Program with Community Action Partnership. They are Johanna Bueno, Bartolomé Colon, and Ricky Dean for the 2016-17, the remainder of the 2016-17
Make a motion that we accept the transportation contracts as presented. They're at the same rate that
Yes.
we've been doing.
Yep.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept those candidates. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so ordered.
Okay, on behalf of the Assessment Office, I have 3 exemption requests for disabled veteran exemptions from real estate taxes. They are Bernaldina Zook, 31 North Crest Acres, Jerry Bush, 102 Lebanon Avenue, Mount Gretna, and Carl Oakley of Nancy Lee Lane, Lebanon. The first one actually is spouse of a survivor, which is eligible as well.
I'll make a motion to accept the exemption from real estate tax for disabled veterans.
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve those exemptions. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so moved.
Okay, the remaining items I have are all transportation related in one way or another. The first one I'll bring to you, and I had emailed and I think hard copied this around to you, but pertains to the property on East 422 East, across from Home Depot there, that you recall last year was put under contract with Aspen Hill Developers, and we're coming up on the renewal of that, which they have indicated to me verbally they're willing to extend that option and pay the additional amount to extend the option. But in the meantime, they've been working on obtaining tenants for the future, for future development of that if it happens, and also meeting with, and John Fitzke and I were included in a couple of meetings with PennDOT about the driver center. He is negotiating with the Bureau of Driver Licensing and so on to actually acquire that parcel from the Commonwealth and redo the driver center and so on, and have a lease arrangement with them. And that's very common these days with driver centers. You don't find as many that are standalone. They're more often now in strip malls, or they're a leased facility. The process for that, and he's worked closely with is working closely with our senator and state representatives is that has to be done by legislation for the property to be conveyed. It has to be allowed by legislation. So Representative Diamond is introducing a bill that will include language to allow for the conveyance of that by the Department of General Services. Hopefully that happens prior to the end of this session. It's not clear whether it will or not, but we're going to do our best. And what he has asked, Justin Mandel of Aspen Hill has asked, is if you would be willing to do a letter of support to the governor's office asking for that legislation to be signed if and when it comes to his desk and so on, and outlines the number of reasons why this project is a good one and so on. John Fitzke, again, John and I met with, and Song met with Justin last week, and he's beginning to take a look at that intersection by Bowman Street and where King Street veers off and so on, which has been a problematic intersection, as well as the one just a little bit further west there where McDonald's is. Those 2 intersections, out of the 25 highest priority intersections we have in Lebanon County that the Planning Department maintains, those intersections rank number 9 in the ones that we'd like to address in the priority. So this is a great opportunity to do that, you know. So for all of those reasons, he is asking for a letter of support to be signed by the commissioners to the governor's office supporting that legislation.
I'd like to make a motion that we draft a letter and sign the letter and send it to the governor supporting this effort.
I'll second it. I do have some questions. Okay. How many total acres will this bring that parcel up to if they acquire the driver's center?
Not sure.
Okay.
The one under contract with us is 4 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Just from my, I guess, the top of the head knowledge of the driver's center parcel, it's very similar. So it may be 8 or 9 acres total.
Okay. And then the second one, has the wetland subdivision been recorded?
No, he hasn't. He's still under option.
But they are still committed to that?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yep, we've got that as part of the agreement,
Right.
the purchase agreement. So
That
yeah,
is
that
not
would happen.
changing.
But that wouldn't change unless, I mean, once everything is acted on, that would be part of what happens if and when this is developed.
Okay, as
Yep.
long as that
No,
is still on the
that's-
table?
That's solid.
Okay,
Mhm.
very good, thank you.
Anything from you guys? All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so moved.
Okay. Next, have a letter of, requesting a letter of support as well from you. John Fitzke brought this over, and I believe you had a copy of this. This is letter of support endorsing the Center for Traffic Safety and its ongoing efforts to reduce traffic crashes, injuries, fatalities on the roadway. Just to bring it back to something recent, the billboard contest that was, I think that Eastern Lebanon County was part of, developing a billboard of, about texting and driving. That's something the Center for Traffic Safety is part of. Barb Zortman is the local name, I believe, that is involved with the center. It's an Adams, Lancaster, Lebanon, and York organization, and they're asking for a letter of support that they can use as they go about their efforts.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we provide a letter of support. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so moved.
Okay, and I have two liquid fuels requests, first being for South Anvil Township for their fixed allocation of $6,991 toward a project which is overlay of Killinger Road, Fortna Road, and Royal Road, and their total cost being $190,030.21. Again, $6,991 would go from liquid fuels, county liquid fuels.
I make a motion that we appropriate that liquid fuels money to South Anvil Township.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so moved.
One other of those, I should have just combined them, but North Londonderry Township is also doing a 2017 paving project. Total cost $245,111.94, and their allocation from County Liquid Fuels would be $8,068.
And this is their fixed allocation?
Yes.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so moved.
Okay, so I want to talk a little about the Locust Street Bridge, a county-owned bridge in Jackson Township. It is, just for sake of locating it, it is just to the north of Bayer, the Bayer Corporation plant on Locust Street, which is between 501 and Ray Street over by where Wenger's Farm Machinery's original location was. So it's right in that neighborhood, just outside of Myerstown Borough, but in Jackson Township. This is a very old bridge. I can only estimate when it was built, but it's at least a 200-year-old bridge. It is over a swale. It's not over a body of water. It's actually over a swale that only sees water in heavy rains and then dissipates in a pasture. And it's a very short span, so it's not even under it's less than a 20-foot span over that swale, so it's not even under the National Bridge Inspection Standards, NBIS standards, but we do, nevertheless, since we own it, we have it inspected, we maintain it, and so on. Over the last several years, it's been having dips and humps and deterioration. Of the walls have been falling apart on it just from freeze and thaw and typical wear and tear, and so we have been planning on making repairs to it. Last year, I think a year ago now, or over a year ago now, we had applied to DEP for the permit to make the repairs. We did an endangered species study underneath the bridge to make sure we could rule out any impact there, and so on. It took until this past winter time until that DEP permit was granted, but it finally was. And so our bridge engineer is in the process of creating the specs and developing the plan for repair to the bridge, which is pretty extensive. They will actually reassemble some of the parts of the wall, the walls that are holding up the bridge, the arch underneath. Many of the stones have fallen out of that, and they will actually excavate out the center of the bridge, the travel lane, and rebuild that. So it's a pretty extensive repair. Its estimate is almost $300,000 in repairs. While we were preparing to put those bids out and so on, which is something we're going to do shortly. Jackson Township called last week and said they believe their roadmaster noticed that the dip may have gotten worse, and they have been monitoring it. Our bridge engineers have put paint marks and monitoring any movement they might see. So I sent the engineer out right away that afternoon, and he looked at it and said his recommendation is to close the bridge now. We would be closing the bridge very shortly anyway to do these repairs, but he said let's get it closed now just so it doesn't take any more of a beating. If any heavy spring rains might contribute to the erosion of the wing walls and so on, he's recommending closure. So we are in the process of that right now. They developed last week a detour plan, closure plan. Steve Klein, our building maintenance supervisor, is working with a sign company he's given them the detour plan. They're assembling all the signage that's needed. It's not just barricades to close it, but it's signage around town to point out the detour and so on. I expect that signage to go up maybe today or tomorrow. It could have been earlier this week, but they just haven't gotten that signage. So it is open for the time being, but it's a recommended closure just to, like I said, to avoid any further damage to the bridge. In the meantime, the next step is for the allocation of funds to do the repairs by you, and then our bridge engineer can go ahead with the bid, getting the bid specs out on the street, and we hope to open those bids on June 21st, get the repairs underway with a hopeful completion date of November 1st. So this is not a few weeks closure, this is several months closure, just because of the extent of the repairs. So what I need from you today in the form of action is, and I provided some of this paperwork to you, the estimate, again, $283,050 is the estimate at this point. That does not include the signage for closure and the oversight by Wilson Consulting of the actual construction work. So that's the number we're basing right now, basing on that estimate, $283,000 or $284,000. But we do expect it'll probably approach more like $300,000 or maybe a little more by the time it's over. John Fitzke and I got together to look at possible sources of funding. You have two available sources. One is, we know, is Act 44 funding, which was several years ago when the legislature planned on tolling Interstate 80. And the proceeds of the tolling that road going into bridge and road repairs at the local level. Even though they were never allowed to toll I-80, they still provided a funding stream, but instead it's coming out of turnpike tolls. Remember the history of that. That's why the tolls are going up annually. Anyhow, you have about $250,000 in that fund. What we intended to use with that long term was to be the 5% county share of the Inwood Bridge replacement. These are all tied together somehow or another. But with PennDOT's latest plan to replace Inwood, you might recall you've been relieved of that 5% share, that they're going to take care of the whole thing between federal and state money. So that money's available. We would recommend you using $200,000 of that toward this repair. And then Act 89 money is Marcellus Shale funds that were allocated to each county to use toward transportation projects, and we'd recommend the other $84,000 coming from that, and then we'll revisit this as the project goes and see if there's any supplemental that's needed. So,
You need a separate motion for closure, or you want this?
no, that's just in prerogative as owner of the bridge, right? But what I need is your action to encumber those funds, and then we will establish that as a project on the PennDOT's ECMS system, and we can go ahead and be able to spend those funds on the closure. So it would be to allocate the $284,000 from Act 44 and Act 89 toward the Locust Street Bridge repairs.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions regarding that motion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so moved.
I have spoken with the plant manager at Bayer. We've been talking with the borough and the township. The township's been very helpful. Their roadmaster keeps a pretty close eye on it. It's very good to us about that.
And the Wingers.
And the Wangers are an adjacent property owner. It's actually their pasture where the swale is, so we're going to need their permission to be able to set up scaffold and things on the bridge, as well as the other neighbor is Iceman's And so we'll get their sign off on doing that. And I think that's it for the Locust Street Bridge, so that's going to be closed to traffic very shortly. The detour's not complicated. You can stay on 501, you know, and then just kind of go around it that way, or if coming from the north, Race Street, you know, comes into Bear, and Bear's already notified their employees.
What's the earliest that you might close it?
Today or tomorrow?
It could be closed as early as today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to check with Steve here after the meeting to see if the sign company has gotten back with us to say, hey, we've got everything loaded up and ready to go out and set up the signs. So, yeah, as soon as the sign, we'll rent the detour and the closure signs for the period of the repairs. So as soon as they have their kit together, so to speak, that's when.
So you're not gonna wait to give people a little bit of an advance warning?
We've tried that with Bayer and with the township and so on, and hopefully, you know, if you guys want to give it some coverage, people will know. But detour signs will be up too.
Anything else?
Oh, your appeals this afternoon are starting only at 2 o'clock, not 1:30.
Okay.
So they've made some changes. And
The
I
only
guess some of them are
other
settled.
thing I had was something that I was able to get from the pathonetary's office yesterday. It was dropped off by Judge John Kuhn regarding the appeal filed by Pennsylvania Counseling Services from the decision of the Zoning Hearing Board of the City of Lebanon dated January 30th, 2017, that appeal has been hereby granted. So we are, at least at that part, it was a positive outcome for the county and for PCS and so on, and I just want to share that with everyone. We came into this yesterday. Now we have to await the county, or the city's reaction to that, but we'll be hopeful that we'll be able to get our day reporting center underway in a timely fashion.
Wasn't part of what PCS requested was the ability to actually move forward with the work even if they appealed?
I think so.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah, as I recall, even if the city decides to appeal at that level, it can't stop the progression of the, even a pending appeal won't prevent it from being
Opened.
opened, right.
John?
What is the earliest that you suspect that with this appeal, even if the city does appeal, that operations may open at the center? I'm assuming we're talking about 7 Cumberland Street.
They have it all ready to go, so it's up to them to open the doors. Oh, Sally's here. She might have an answer.
I don't have an answer to that. I don't know.
I don't think that.
I don't think they have it ready
I don't think
because
so either.
they held up
That's
the
part of the
permitting.
problem.
Yeah, they held up.
Well, they
the
said they were
permit.
going to open whether they had the other 2 offices constructed or not. I remember them saying that at the hearing.
Yeah, but, I
They
mean,
said
this
everything else was ready.
This is so new that we haven't talked to PCS yet quite about it.
I was under the understanding that the city could still request a stay if they choose to appeal the judge's ruling. I was under the understanding that they could still request.
So they could take action to attempt to stop it, but it doesn't it's not pending an appeal. We can move on. They can request a stay, I guess.
Correct,
is
they
what you're
can,
saying.
they
Okay.
can request an appeal and allow the process to move forward, or they can request an appeal and ask for a stay, which would stop PCS from moving forward.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Gordy?
Yeah, but it's all white.
We don't know when it can open, I guess, right now.
It
Sitting
sounds
here.
like taxpayers' money to me.
Yeah, it's good.
But to be clear, then, in the headquarters, which was kind of a plan B for a while, did
Yes.
they ever get anything up and rolling?
Oh, no.
There,
No.
no.
They
It was
chose
not-
to
They
wait
weren't
to
interested.
Yeah,
to the
that was
outcome.
just
They didn't want to start and stop, and yeah,
Conditional thing.
that was a recommendation from the
Yeah.
courts as
I
well,
was-
probation.
I was at the zoning hearing board yesterday when they got a special exception for the old rental business up the road here on Cornwall, where they're purchasing that and moving a studio,
Yes.
film studio
Yeah.
there. That's what I learned about their.
This ruling, yeah.
Okay.